Hello and welcome to Wittgenstein Aficionados, a channel for everyone who wants to get a core understanding of Wittgenstein's later philosophy, even if you are a complete beginner or if you have some background. Today's video is on paragraph 2, and the vibe of this paragraph is very different from paragraph 1. In paragraph 1, there was a lot of critical assessment, and we looked deeply into the nature of words, and even got rid of a notion that seemed superfluous, and so on. In this paragraph, Wittgenstein wants to simply familiarize us with his terminology. He wants to show us a new conception of language, a complete primitive language, he calls it. And he's actually going to invent an entire language for us in this paragraph. But as you can see, it is only 5 sentences long, so it's not going to be a language of great scope. But at least we get to see some small-scale world building going on. In paragraph 1, we learned about Augustine's description of language, about meaning, about Wittgenstein's shopkeeper, and also that meaning is not really meaning with a capital M. Paragraph 2 presupposes that you are acquainted with these topics. I tick this paragraph off as important simply because it contains an example called Wittgenstein's builders, which will be invoked in several other paragraphs as well. If you don't learn about the builders in this paragraph, then paragraph 6, for example, won't make any sense to you. Sentence 1 and 2 contain 2 quick remarks on meaning, but they are of less importance than sentence 3 and 4, which contains Wittgenstein's builders. Sentence 5 is simply a concluding remark, and we'll use it as an opportunity to get on our high horse and critically assess what Wittgenstein wants us to buy into in this paragraph. Let's get started. So we finished up paragraph 1 with a discussion of meaning. We were shown that a very common sense and plausible view of language, with a correlation between meaning and word as its fundamental component, was shown to be a mistake. The first 2 sentences of paragraph 2 cuts us some slack for making that mistake. This idea of meaning stems from a primitive idea of how language functions. That's the first sentence, and in other words, it's not like we made up a completely out-of-the-blue picture of meaning. There is a reason for why we pictured it the way that we actually did. But one might say that it is the idea of a language more primitive than ours. I take this to mean that the picture of meaning with the capital M is not such a bad attempt at an explanation of how language functions if that language was more primitive in some way than ours. So if our language was not so complex, in some way we haven't explored yet, then Wittgenstein would not be so hard on us. The second sentence is also somewhat intriguing. It suggests that even though we use language with such ease, it's as natural as breathing is to us. When we try to explain how it functions, we come up with an explanation which is better fit for a language which is an oversimplification of the human language we actually use, the language that is a part of almost every aspect of human life. Alright, so that's sentence 1 and 2, and like everything I've said here is not something you have to fully grasp at this point. These sentences are not integral to the progression of the arguments of the book, just so you know. The next 2 sentences, however, are integral to the progression of the argument of the book. So now we change topic from meaning to the Augustinian view of language yet again. Wittgenstein invites us to imagine a language for which the Augustinian description of language is right. But before we see what Wittgenstein has imagined, there are a few things we should get clear on first. Wittgenstein hasn't shown us anything that's wrong with Augustine's view yet he's asking us to imagine a language for which it is right. The implication being that Augustine's description is apt for something, but not everything. And this echoes the spirit of his remarks in sentence 1 and 2, where our picture of meaning with a capital M wasn't so bad for an oversimplified language. And I think he hasn't shown us the shortcomings of Augustine's view yet, because he wants to keep us on familiar ground for a bit longer. Anyway, let's get on with Wittgenstein's builders. The language we're asked to imagine is meant to serve for communication between builder A and assistant B. A is building with stones. There are blocks, pillars, slabs, and beams. B has to pass him the stones, and to do so in the order in which A needs them. For this purpose, they make use of a language consisting of the words block, pillar, slab, beam. A calls them out, B brings the stone, which he has learned to bring at such and such a call. I don't really have any remarks to add to this example. I think it speaks for itself. And if I was to add anything, it would just be the same things I said about the shopkeeper, because they're very similar. You can tell that Wittgenstein's examples tend to have a sort of step-by-step or sequential structure to them. It's as if the humans in his examples take turns in some kind of game or something. In the final sentence, Wittgenstein asks us to conceive of the builder's language as a complete primitive language. So he's mentioned primitive 3 times in this paragraph, but he hasn't explicitly said what that entails, although the builder certainly has a rudimentary feel to it. And one should perhaps also feel a bit reluctant to consider a language consisting of only 4 words as a complete language. I doubt there is a language out there which consists of only 4 words revolving around one activity. Or maybe not. Every language presumably has 1 word in the beginning. Anyway, as Hacker and Baker say as their analysis of the paragraph, Wittgenstein is not doing armchair anthropology here. He's using the builders as an expository device. So what's important here is that it makes sense to us that the builders exemplify a system of communication. So that's paragraph 2 for you. Very simple. We'll come back to the builders in some other paragraphs where their language will be expanded upon, they'll get new words and so on. Next up is paragraph 3, which is even simpler than this one, and it consists mainly of one comparative analogy. If this video was educational to you, feel free to rate, comment, subscribe, and do ask questions in the comment area if you have any, as I will be compiling them and hopefully answering them at some point in the future. Bye for now.